The fundamental question. Have you ever interrogated the reason why specific individuals reduced you to insignificance? Why they dismantled your worth, belittled your spirit, or rendered you completely invisible? I present here a concept that will fundamentally shatter your current understanding of reality. I have unearthed a psychological absolute so potent that, once seized, it will permanently alter your observation of human conduct. You will never perceive behavior through the same lens again. The mirror of cruelty. Consider this radical proposition. The cruelty inflicted upon you had virtually no connection to your true nature. Their malice was, in reality, a mirror reflecting a terror they could not face within their own abyss. Stay the course with me, for by the termination of this discourse, you will master the hidden psychology driving this mistreatment. More critically, you will unveil the reason you magnetized this darkness into your life initially. Liberation, not blame. This is not an exercise in assigning fault. This is a manifesto of liberation. These insights, excavated through arduous labor, will sever the chains of a pattern that has ensnared you for too long. We must commence with the unvarnished truth. You have endured mistreatment. The illusion of unworthiness. It may have been a parent who refused to validate your existence, a partner who weaponized criticism, friends who desecrated your trust, or colleagues who sabotaged your efforts. You have undoubtedly plagued yourself with the inquiry, what error did I commit? Why is this my fate? Am I truly devoid of value? From the vantage point of analytical psychology, I assert that these questions are entirely erroneous. Predictable patterns. The abuse you suffered was neither random chaos nor a punishment you earned. I have dedicated decades to mapping the human psyche, and the findings may startle you. Human cruelty adheres to rigid psychological laws, totally independent of the victim's intrinsic merit. However, this is where the dynamic becomes intricate. The unconscious participant. We act as unconscious accomplices in these patterns. We do not do this because we crave suffering, but because of a variable buried in the bedrock of our unconscious mind, an inherited element we have failed to confront. Until we decipher this mechanism, we are condemned to attract the identical breed of individuals who will brutalize us in the exact same manner. Fate versus consciousness. Why does this occur? Sustain your focus, for the solution will transmute your very existence. I have established a maxim that the majority fail to grasp. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Allow the gravity of that decree to settle upon you. The shadow defined. Through clinical work with thousands of patients, I established that human beings function on two distinct planes of awareness. There is the conscious mind, our waking awareness, and the unconscious mind, which dictates nearly 95% of our behavior. The unconscious is the repository for everything we have repressed, denied, or refused to accept about our nature. I designated this entity the shadow. The shadow's magnetism. Here is the pivot point. Your shadow does not lie dormant in the darkness. It actively sculpts your reality. It dictates whom you find attractive, whom you grant access to your soul, and indeed, how people treat you. The individuals who abused you were responding to an invisible signal you were unconsciously projecting. The signal in the dark. They were not responding to your conscious virtues or stated intent, but to your unresolved traumas, the denied fragments of your being, the elements you banished to the void. These tormentors were not randomly cruel. They were pulled toward you, and you toward them, by a psychological magnetism that neither party understood. The unconscious contract. This entire operation is devoid of conscious intent. The abuser does not awake with a strategic plan to dismantle you. Nor did you consciously request a tormentor. Yet, the interaction unfolds inevitably, orchestrated by forces submerged beneath surface awareness. Projection and perception. This is the dance of the shadow, and the revelation deepens here. I unearthed one of the most absolute truths regarding human connection. We never perceive others as they objectively are. We view them exclusively through the lens of our own unconscious projections. I termed this shadow projection, and it explains the entirety of your mistreatment. The mechanism of rejection. The mechanism operates thus: every human possesses a shadow, the rejection of parts deemed unacceptable. Perhaps in youth, you learned anger was vile, so you strangled it. Perhaps you were instructed that your needs were a burden, so you negated them. The paradox of attraction. These rejected fragments do not disintegrate. They sink into the unconscious and wait. That which we reject in ourselves, we project onto others. Observe the paradox. We attract individuals who personify the very traits we have disowned. If you denied your rage, you will summon angry tyrants. If you rejected your power, you will summon controlling oppressors. The attack on the self. If you silenced your own voice, you will draw in those who silence you. The person who mistreated you was likely projecting their own shadow onto you. They perceived in you a quality they loathed within themselves, a quality they could not integrate, so they attacked it in your person. The accusation. This explains why abusers frequently accuse their victims of the precise sins they themselves commit. The narcissist labels you selfish. The deceiver brands you a liar. The sadist calls you cruel. But pause, for there is a deeper gear turning here, explaining why you tolerated this treatment. Stay with me. The mirror of wounds. I have posited that everything that irritates us about others can lead to an understanding of ourselves. This causes discomfort for many. I discovered a radical reality. The people who mistreated you were mirroring your unhealed wounds. Before you reject this concept, allow me to elucidate. The recreation of trauma. This is not victim blaming. This is the analysis of an unconscious machine that holds you prisoner. We unconsciously recreate the wounds of childhood within adult relationships. We do not do this because we are masochists, but because the unconscious mind strives to resolve what was left unfinished. Seeking the familiar. If you were raised by an emotionally absent parent, your unconscious codified that absence as the definition of love. Consequently, as an adult, you unconsciously hunt for emotionally unavailable partners. You do not do this consciously. You tell yourself you want presence and care, but your unconscious runs a different script. Find someone familiar, and perhaps this time, we can fix the outcome. Repetition compulsion. This repetition compulsion is one of the most dominant forces in psychology. We are driven to return to the scene of the crime, hoping for a rewritten ending. The woman with a critical mother manifests critical partners. The man with an absent father manifests companions who abandon him. The cast of the drama. The neglected child becomes the adult who settles for scraps of affection. The people who mistreated you were not accidents. They were perfectly cast actors in a play directed by your unconscious. They arrived to perform the role of the rejecting parent, the cruel authority, or the betraying friend, whatever wound lay dormant within you. The unending cycle. Here is the critical realization. They will continue to appear in different masks until you heal the underlying wound. You may change your city, your career, or your spouse, but the pattern will hunt you down. I call this fate when we are asleep, but choice when we awaken. The question stands, are you prepared to wake up? The following section details exactly how this is achieved. The collective unconscious. There is a force deeper than the personal unconscious at play. I discovered the collective unconscious, a stratum of the psyche shared by all mankind, containing universal behavioral patterns I called archetypes. These are ancient blueprints inherited by us all. Universal roles. The victim, the persecutor, the rescuer, the tyrant, the scapegoat. I asserted that these archetypes persist in every culture because they are hardwired into the human psychological structure. When someone mistreated you, they were often possessed by an archetypal role, and you stepped into the reciprocal position. This is not personal, it is transpersonal. Enacting ancient scripts. The boss who bullied you embodied the tyrant. The treacherous friend played the shadow companion. The partner who left enacted the ancient narrative of abandonment. Until we become conscious of these patterns, we remain trapped in them. Breaking the script. We unconsciously step into these roles, reading from a script written millennia ago. Your mistreatment was not unique to you. It was an ancient pattern repeating through you. But here lies your power. Refusing the role. Once you identify the archetype, you can exit the stage. You can refuse to embody the victim. You can reject the mantle of the scapegoat. Consciousness is the master key to shattering these ancient strictures. This leads us to the most vital concept of all. The trap of the persona. Most individuals traverse life wearing a mask. I termed this the persona, the false self presented to the world to secure acceptance and evade rejection. The persona is the identity you fabricated to survive society. It is the obedient daughter who swallows her rage. The nice guy who dissolves his boundaries. The stoic who strangles their vulnerability. The prison of the mask. The persona is a social necessity, but it becomes a prison when we forget it is merely a mask. When you over-identify with the persona, you lose contact with your authentic self, the being you are beneath the conditioning. Observe the link to mistreatment. Attracting the reinforcement. Those who exist primarily as a persona attract relationships that reinforce the mask, not the self. If your persona is the helper, you will attract the exploitative. If your persona is the independent, you will attract those who give nothing. The mistreatment was a response to your mask, not your soul. The scent of weakness. Predatory individuals possess a primal instinct for detecting inauthenticity and the absence of boundaries. They smell a fragile persona from a distance. The path to authentic connection requires burning the persona and presenting yourself as you truly are, complete with wounds, demands, and edges. The transformation. When you cease performing and commence being, the dynamic shifts. Those who abuse the false you cannot tolerate the presence of the real you. Authenticity repels those who require your submission. But you must understand who has been feeding on your falsity. I identified a specific class of people as psychologically unconscious. Emotional vampires. These individuals reside entirely within their shadow, oblivious to their destruction. These are the emotional vampires who drained you. I understood exactly why they targeted you. Unconscious people are incapable of generating their own psychic energy. They must harvest it from others. The source of sustenance. They feed on your attention, your empathy, your reactions. The more conscious and empathetic you are, the richer a food source you become. Highly sensitive, empathetic individuals are the primary prey for these unconscious predators. The attraction of light. Why? Because the empath possesses high psychological energy but is often severed from their own shadow. They have repressed their capacity for anger and self-protection. Thus, they attract those who embody those exact dark traits. The narcissist, the exploiter, the manipulator. Extinguishing the flame. They were drawn to your light like moths to a flame. But they did not seek to share your light, they sought to extinguish it. Your light was a painful reminder of the humanity they forfeited. Unconscious people cannot endure consciousness in others. The threat of growth. Your evolution threatens them. Your healing shames them. Your boundaries expose them. They mistreated you to keep you small, to snuff out your light, to render you as unconscious as they are. But this is the juncture where the tide turns. I discovered the counterforce. The path of individuation. I discovered my most significant contribution to psychology, the process of individuation. This is the journey to becoming your true self. It is the integration of all rejected parts, moving from unconscious sleep to conscious awakening. Ending the attraction. This is the precise method to stop attracting mistreatment. Individuation demands the most difficult human act, confronting your shadow. You must examine the parts you denied, the suppressed rage, the disregarded needs, the relinquished power. All must be acknowledged, integrated, and reclaimed. The avoidance of pain. Most avoid this because it is agony. It is simpler to blame the world than to ask, what hook within me caught this fish? It is easier to remain a victim than to reclaim authority. It is easier to repeat the pattern than to shatter it. Becoming whole. But those who undertake individuation experience a miracle. As you integrate your shadow, you become whole. A whole person ceases to attract fragmented people. When you own your anger, you repel the rage-filled. When you honor your needs, you repel the takers. The energetic shift. When you erect boundaries, you repel violators. Your energetic signature alters fundamentally. Individuation transforms you from a victim of circumstance into the architect of your existence. Authoring the narrative. You cease to be a character in another's play and become the author of your own. But individuation is a lifelong vow, commencing with a singular, potent decision. I declared, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. This is where the chain breaks. The framework of freedom. Breaking free demands psychological insight and definitive action. Follow this framework. First, recognize the pattern. Most are so consumed by suffering they cannot see the cycle. Audit your history with brutal honesty. The audit. Do you attract the same emotional unavailability, the same criticism, the same betrayal in different bodies? Recognition is the prerequisite for liberty. Second, withdraw your projections. Stop seeing them as monsters, see them as mirrors. What quality in them triggers you? That is your shadow speaking. Reclaiming power. If their cruelty enrages you, where are you cruel to yourself? If their selfishness disgusts you, where have you starved your own needs? This excuses nothing, it reclaims everything. Third, you must grieve the void. The necessity of mourning. Grieve the validation you never received, the love you required. Most bypass this and rot in resentment. But losses unmourned bind us to the past. You must mourn the impossible before you can create the possible. Fourth, erect new boundaries. Boundaries are self-respect made visible. Signaling self-worth. Every time you enforce a boundary, you signal to your unconscious, I matter. I refuse mistreatment. Watch how quickly parasites flee when you close the host. Fifth, you must consciously select different people. Your unconscious will still crave the familiar poison. Overriding the program. The unavailable person will feel right. The critic will feel honest. You must override this programming. Choose the person who feels unfamiliar but healthy. Choose the relationship that feels strange because it is safe. The transformation point. There comes a moment where everything shifts. I called this the transformation, the death of the old self. You stand at this precipice now. Transformation is not comfortable. The death of the old self. The people-pleaser must die. The victim must die. The scavenger of crumbs must die. Death brings loss. Even when shedding a disease, you will mourn the familiarity of the sickness. You will miss the old pain as you step into the new peace. The final test. During this phase, you will be tested. The abusers may return, offering exactly what you once begged for. This is the final exam. Will you revert to the familiar hell, or honor your evolution? Most fail this test initially. The illusion of change. They return. They offer a mirage. But true transformation means recognizing they have not changed, you have. The person you are becoming no longer fits in the cage you once occupied. The old life will feel suffocating. The pain of evolution. The old patterns will become intolerable. This discomfort is the proof of your growth. There is no consciousness without pain. You are enduring the labor pains of your own rebirth. Embrace it. Now, to the practical instruments. The Shadow Journal. First, commence a shadow journal. Every evening, dissect your reactions. Who angered you? What behavior irked you? Ask, what does this unveil about my shadow? This accelerates self-awareness faster than any other method. This journal forces the unconscious into the light. Active imagination. Second, utilize active imagination. Dedicate 15 minutes daily to visualization. See yourself enforcing boundaries with your past abusers. Speak the words you swallowed. This reprograms the unconscious and prepares you for real-world action. The witness consciousness. Third, cultivate witness consciousness. Observe your patterns without judgment. When the compulsion toward a toxic person arises, pause. Say, that is my wounded child seeking the familiar. I am the conscious adult, and I choose differently. The community of growth. Fourth, find your individuation community. You cannot achieve wholeness in isolation, nor heal among those who prefer you broken. Seek wise counsel, therapeutic groups, or companions dedicated to growth. These people will reflect your light, not devour it. Dream analysis. Fifth, engage your dreams. Your unconscious speaks in symbols every night. Record them. Note the recurring themes. Your dreams reveal what is unhealed and what is ready to be born. Radical honesty. Sixth, practice radical self-honesty. Self-deception is the enemy of individuation. Stop lying about why you tolerate abuse. Stop making excuses for people who show you their true face. The truth liberates, but first, it will hurt. The central inquiry. I devoted my life to one question: how do we become who we truly are? The answer is integration. We become ourselves by reclaiming every rejected piece, by confronting every evasion, by owning every projection. The profound teachers. The people who mistreated you were, in a twisted sense, your greatest teachers. Not because they were virtuous, but because they illuminated exactly where you needed to heal. They revealed your programming. Now that you see it, you cannot unsee it. The two paths. There are two types of people, those lived by the unconscious and those who live consciously. The former will repeat the nightmare forever. The latter break the chains. Which will you join? The privilege of being. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You have the map. Will you walk the path? The mistreatment ends not when they change, but when you change. Your transformation initiates now. Make the unconscious conscious. Integrate the shadow. The homecoming. Become whole, and watch your reality transform. The power was always yours. I bid you welcome home, to yourself.